Hey everyone, it's Miss Queen Crypto. Welcome back to the third installment of Block Talk. Today I'm going to be talking about sound money and the importance of sound money when we're having the Bitcoin conversation and the cryptocurrency conversation. So today I'm going to be heavily referencing two books, the first being The Bitcoin Standard and the second being Thank God for Bitcoin. They both have underlying themes and motifs about economics in general and the underlying principles that really support Bitcoin and really make an argument for why Bitcoin is such a superior form of money. I highly recommend both of them. I think they're really important for developing a foundational knowledge for understanding all of those principles. Along with that, I also highly recommend Mastering Bitcoin, but that focuses more on the technical aspects of Bitcoin, and that's not really what today's conversation is about. So with that, let's get into it. So an important place to start this conversation is with fiat money itself. So that term is thrown out a lot on social media or in articles, in videos, but it might not be super clear what it means originally. You might just think it means like an inflationary asset, but fiat money means government money. And so it comes from the Latin word, like the Latin root word means by decree or by order. And so the government has said, this is going to be our form of legal tender now. This is what we accept. We're good to go. So that runs into issues because when it's by decree, you don't really have a choice. Obviously, you can have your own forms and systems of trading value, but the legal tender that is most widely accepted is going to be whatever the fiat money is. And so when we're talking about fiat money, there are two important categories. So you either have fiat money that is backed by gold, or you have fiat money that is not backed by gold. So up until June 5th, 1933, the US dollar was on the gold standard. So what that meant was, theoretically, if you walked into a bank and gave them $1, you would be able to get the value of that dollar in gold right away. That would be a one-to-one transaction. The dollar meant this is an IOU for that dollar's worth of gold. Now, obviously, if you walked into a bank with just $1, likely they wouldn't give you the value in gold, but theoretically, that's the concept. So once we took ourselves off of the gold standard, that's when we run into a lot more of the issues with fiat money. But it's an important distinction to make because not all fiat money is not backed by gold. There is some fiat money that is backed by gold, but it's a lot less common now than it was 100 years ago. So money not backed by gold and instead backed by the word of the government issuing it is a little bit questionable, especially with all of the issues we have now with the money supply. We have the most recent report said that inflation was at an all-time high for 50 years or something. Don't quote me on that, but at 7.9%, which is just pretty astronomical and something that we all kind of had our suspicions about, but still to see the number in the official report was not great. But basically, the issue is, since it is only the word of the government that is giving it value, the government can also just print more of it. And so we've seen that with COVID, with printing more money in order to redistribute it or to just distribute it and allocate it to people for relief. But we also see that just year after year. It's not a new thing. That was not an isolated incident. That's just something that happens with fiat money. There's nothing backing it, so you're not really tied to that gold supply. If we were on the gold standard and we had X amount of gold and we decided to print more money, you would be able to see the value of each dollar compared to the amount of gold decreasing. But since it's not that one-to-one comparison, you're able to get away with it a little bit quicker and more easily. And the only way you're able to really tell is from the prices of goods going up, the prices of rent going up, things like that. However, there is still a gold supply that the US has that our money is technically backed on, but this isn't the case for all fiat monies. In fact, when the United States first got off the gold standard, we were actually pushing other countries to adopt the United States dollar as their reserve currency rather than gold, making the US dollar in many world reserve banks. it was kind of crazy, and it was something that we were rooting for because it gave us more value. Like, our US dollar was more valuable because other people saw it as more valuable, which, great. But then a lot of those countries witnessed economic collapse because, crazy, when you're trying to derive value from something that doesn't inherently have value, you could run into even more issues than the first person. It was like a chain reaction type thing. And so the sound money argument comes from an asset that isn't going to deteriorate over time, something that when you hold onto it, it'll grow in value. So the issue with our current system, the fiat system, is that in 5 years from now, if I put $1,000 in a savings account, it could be worth $900. So there's no incentive to save money. And we run into this capitalistic cycle where, okay, well, if my money's not going to be worth anything in like 10 years, then I might as well spend a bunch of money and buy things that I don't necessarily need instead of saving up and being like responsible with your money. Not to say that spending money is irresponsible. It is quite literally a very important part of life. But with sound money, the money that you put in is going to have a return on investment. It's something that will actually hold its value over time. And that is something that we just don't see with fiat money anymore, especially fiat money not backed by gold. I'm going to reiterate that point because there is a difference, but not very many fiat monies at this point are backed by gold. So one of the really important characteristics of Bitcoin is that it has a hard cap at roughly 21 million Bitcoin. The number is like very, very, very slightly lower, but for our purposes, I'm going to be saying 21 million. Obviously, some of that is going to be lost in wallets that were destroyed and not usable, but when that 21 millionth Bitcoin is mined, that means that all the Bitcoin that is currently in circulation, that's it. There will not be any more Bitcoin entering the supply. And so as demand grows for it and there is no new supply in order to quench that, the value is going to continue to go up. So even right now, we have a pretty set hash rate. So that means that like one Bitcoin block is mined every 10 minutes, and the difficulty of the puzzle in order to solve it for miners changes in accordance to that to stick to the 10 minutes. And there's a hash rate every 4 years that decreases the amount in the block by half. But so that means that we're not going to actually mine the 21 millionth Bitcoin for quite a bit. However, now a block is a lot less than it was 12 years ago. So because Bitcoin has that hard cap, it's known as a deflationary asset. It is exactly what I was talking about when I said you want an asset that's going to increase in value over time. And that doesn't necessarily just mean like looking at trading charts and seeing that, but that is probably the easiest way to visualize it for yourself. If you look at like a macro scale chart of Bitcoin over the past 10 years, you can very, very clearly see that it is rising exponentially. It's exponential growth. But the sound money argument isn't necessarily talking about like sentiment driving demand. It's really talking about the intrinsic properties of Bitcoin itself that allows for it to be considered sound money. On that note, we often hear Bitcoin referred to as digital gold, which is funny because gold being the most recognized store of value, it makes sense that we compare something that we see as a very, very unique store of value to gold. But the funny part is when Satoshi Nakamoto first introduced it in the white paper, he referred to it more as a form of digital cash, which very different, as we know. So this transition from seeing Bitcoin as digital cash to digital gold kind of emphasizes the problem with our monetary system currently. And you can see why Bitcoin, which makes such an argument for sound money and a deflationary asset, and the importance of having a lower time preference and all of that, why it is more comparable to gold than it is to cash. However, many people don't view Bitcoin as a store of value strictly because of the volatility it has. From week to week, your money could grow and lose value in the blink of an eye. And obviously that is something that's scary. But as adoption continues to move forward and there are more and more people using it, and more people putting value into it and appreciating the system, that volatility will end up kind of leveling out. And at that point, we'll have Bitcoin as like the primary money source. And that's something that I look forward to, and I hope I get to see in my lifetime, but we'll see. Now, this is a very, very nuanced topic with a lot of different angles that can be taken, and this was not nearly as in-depth as it could be. So if you want me to talk more about it and do like a book review on the Bitcoin standard, adding my own like thoughts on some things, I would be over the moon to do that. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, subscribe to the Embily channel, and follow me on Twitter at MissQueenCrypto. And if you have any further suggestions on video ideas, or if there's something that you want me to speak on, please let me know. Either comment it or DM me on Twitter. But again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.